What's up, everybody? I am Tyson Nagasaka with Portfolio Planning, and this is episode 10 of Portfolio Talks. We get to do this one live. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vishal, for showing up live, and we're excited to do this.
Yes. I made a joke that you guys haven't heard before, but I was saying that we're officially now longer than a Netflix short series. So
Wow.
you can no longer binge watch us in one night, unless you have a really, really long night. But we're past that category onto a full-fledged one, and we're not AI. So we're talking about AI.
That's right.
AI is crazy growing nowadays. But no, episode 10, it's crazy. It's flown by.
It shows you how much there is to talk about when it
Yeah.
comes to this kind of stuff, and I think it's been fascinating to just. It isn't hard to talk about. I mean, it's everyday life that we deal with, and
Yeah.
and we have a lot of experience with people, so it's interesting to kind of compare notes and share.
Absolutely.
And we're not bored of each other yet, which is a nice sign. So that's always good.
That's right. That's a
Well,
good
we are
mix.
live now, so this might be different.
Yeah, exactly. This might be the one and only time you see us live if Mike's like, it's not worth it to make that drive.
Yeah.
But you had an event this weekend. How was it?
It was good, yeah. So yesterday I was at an event for Peace Arch Hospital Foundation, and so they're talking about raising money with donors and how do we do that and where does it go when you're working with the hospital. And the event that I went to was specifically tailored to advisors, so tax advisors, lawyers, and financial advisors. And then they flew in a speaker that is prominent in our space, and so Mark Halpern was there to do his introduction to people who have never seen it on how philanthropic planning works and where you turn taxes into charity. And it was a fantastic event. And for me, I went because I wanted to, increase the network and kind of deepen the ties in that community. And it was great. Such an awesome event.
But it shows you, I mean, you guys at your level and those tax people, and they're still learning. There's still so much more to find out, right? And
That's the scary thing.
Yeah.
Is Vishal and I learn something, and then you learn something on the mortgage side, and you think like I've heard it 1,000 times, and then you talk to another professional, and their mind is like blown. They're like, "What? You can do what?" And we went through a couple of examples. Somebody sold a business, and then they owe like $7 million in tax. But if we do a $14 million charitable contribution, it creates a huge asset for the charity. They get a huge tax benefit, and then we just backfill it with life insurance, so the beneficiaries of the estate actually receive more money.
Wow.
And it's like, how does that even work? And the way that Mark says it is basically we just move the shelves around, and it's like a math problem where we change the order of operations, and the outcome is bigger.
wow.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying, and I've mentioned this many, many times, but to your point is you think you know everything until you meet somebody else in the industry and you're like, oh, wait, what? And then you have the time to go back and back test it with some of your other strategies that you've done. But this is why I say you got to be very cautious of having and working with advisors who are part-time advisors, or they do like 6 different things at the same time. Like, hey, I'm your financial planner. I'm also your mortgage broker. I'm also like your investment specialist. I'm also going to be like your personal banker. I can't even imagine how many things that they're missing because we do what we do at portfolio planning. We're super niched at it, but there's still things that you're learning all the time. Like you were at that event, and then last week we had an event for the Fraser Valley Healthcare Foundation, and it was like a networking event. So all accountants, lawyers, and financial planners, we were there, and even that, just having conversations. There was a lot of accountants that were there that we're telling them like what we do and what we do as far as what we can turn their inefficient donations for other clients into like way better stuff. And even these accountants were senior tax planners at some of these big firms, and they're like, wait, what? I didn't know you could do that.
You can't be a generalist and go deep. You can
No.
just touch the surface of a few things, and that's all you can kind of do. And that's not a slam on anybody, but I mean, as you go farther down the rabbit hole, there's so much more to understand, and that's where I think having the right group of people to bring in for those situations may not be something you do every day or talk to every client about, but for the right client, the right connection, that can be a huge game changer.
100%, which is what we're really grateful about having you. We talk about this all the time, but
Vice
we're not
versa.
mortgage brokers. But if we have someone the best thing that we can do for our clients is to have a great relationship with someone like yourself, so that when we do have a client that needs something creative, something specialized, we're not going to spend 40 hours trying to touch the surface of what this topic is and figure it out, and then try and implement that strategy just to look good. It's like, hey, listen, we know what we know. What I know now is that Mike is better at dealing with this than I am. I've done this with him 100 times, so let's just get in contact with him. And it's way easier for everybody and better for the client.
Yeah. So let's go back before you're handing 14 million to a charity.
You're so nice, man.
Thank you.
I wanted to touch on a topic that I think it affects almost everybody we deal with, certainly early on. But so many people, and I feel like in the world it's getting worse. But you're in your early 20s and you're working and hopefully and making a little bit of income, and there's so many things that come flying at you about you should do this and you should do that, and we all know there's the right path, but so many people get pulled off onto the wrong path. I mean, CIBC used to offer visas to students for $500, and guess what they did? They went partying with them every night. And
That was me.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. That's one little move that happens, and all of a sudden now you're in debt, and you just get used to owing everything on your visa all the time. You never pay it off.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's what they want, because your whole system is to suck as much money out of you as you can. How do people stay on that right path? I think that's a huge discussion, and I think we should talk about it, because I think for a lot of people out there, it's so easily drawn in. I mean, you got to get the latest iPhone or the latest Samsung, and
Right.
you're on a $75 a month plan now, and and internet is this much, and before you know it, you're chucking out a lot of money that's never seen again, and it's not going to help you 5 years from now. It's not going to help you 50 years from now, and yet you guys are in the business of trying to help them find a way to do that, and I think we should talk about a few of those things that we can do.
Yeah.
Obviously, it takes the right person to understand it and want to do it. I mean, that's the what you need, the motivation.
That's the challenge, is the want to do it. And so if you boil it down to like the basics, being more boring is what wealthy people do.
Yeah.
And then people who want to look wealthy, they buy the watches and the new electronics and the new cars,
Yeah.
and like everything's got to look new all the time. New golf clubs every year, right? It's gonna help my game.
I feel attacked.
You've only done it once.
I've only done it once, yeah.
But that people who chase that newness feeling, they have to have that excitement in their life a lot of times, and that's like an undercurrent. That's not necessarily a financial planning thing. But when you meet families and individuals that have money and maybe their second generation, is they have different values that are instilled in them, and that boring, like, I've had this jacket for 10 years and it still serves me. Like, why would I buy a new one? And they have those thought mechanisms, which is a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And a lot of what Vishal and I do is not necessarily offensive. Like, we're going to get you the best rates of return. We're going to make you rich. We're going to, like,
Yeah.
no. It's defensive. We're going to stop you from making mistakes. We're going to stop you from wasting money. We're going to stop other people from predatoring or preying on your situation.
Yeah.
And some of those times is we got to stop you from attacking yourself.
Yeah, I think people don't know themselves well enough. And that's what I noticed. So part of our planning process, the second meeting that we do with our client, is really just fact finding. So we ask them questions. All right, think back to like some of your best days. What did you do? And more times than not, it doesn't cost any money, if not very minimal money.
Yeah.
And it's always my favorite question I ask during the whole planning process, because it's so different. And more times than not, they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I never thought about that. I'm like, so why, when we look at your budget and where your cash flow, like where your money's going, you're spending money on all this stuff, but at no point did you ever say it was one of your high, happiness moments.
Best things.
There was no correlation between
Yeah.
where you're spending your money on these consumable items versus what you actually enjoy doing. In fact, you enjoy doing this with costs almost nothing. And they're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that. And then when it comes to the very end of the financial plan, when it comes to the recommendations, oftentimes it's not new money that they have to come up with. It's reallocating or moving these shells around.
Yeah.
Of, you mentioned in the beginning of our process that you spent this much money on this, and it brought you nothing.
Yeah.
You don't enjoy it at all. Like it does nothing for you. So let's cut that out and spend this money on this investment that's going to help you retire 5 years earlier. That's going to allow you to do more of this stuff that you actually enjoy doing. And it's about connecting those dots all
Yeah.
together, because I think what you said is perfect. Like, be comfortable, be boring, because our clients that are really good with their money, not the highest income earners, but the ones that are actually good with their money and on track for early retirement and things of that type, they're very much, they live below their means, they invest the rest, and they understand the concept that everyone out there is trying to get your money.
Yeah.
And this is what we talked to our students about when we did that event for the UBC Year 1 med students, and we're just going to do UBC dentistry next week, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
our first session is always the same message. You need to understand that a lot of the predatory lenders, they're going to give you access to all this money, and they know that you're going to start purchasing stuff in the now because you're overburdened with schoolwork, and you're like, I can't see 4, 5, 8 years down the road.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to get what I need now. Put that onto a line of credit, and then I'll pay for it later when I have a high income. The banks have done this enough that they know it's going to take you a long time to get. You're not going to make enough money right out of school to be like, boom, my debt's wiped out. They're going to be collecting off you for a long, long time. And at no point do they ever teach you about how to use their line of credit responsibly. They're like, here's $350,000, have at it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because going back to the $500 visa, I think that's actually a good thing, because I remember I made a mistake where I started going to, what was it back in the day? Mirage in Surrey. That used to be the spot. So when I go to Mirage and the Caprice, I would max out my student visas $500. I'm like, damn.
Right.
But it's a $500 mistake. It's not the end of the world. I'm like, all right, I'll just pay it off in my next paycheck. I learned that lesson. I'm like, well, that sucked. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
But with all these students, they don't learn that $500 lesson, but they learn a $350,000 lesson, because once they graduate, they're like, holy cow, I got to start paying for this. Or in year 4, what we just saw is the interest rates. It's a variable, so it's not a student loan.
No.
It's a line of credit.
Yeah.
Student line of credit. So when the interest rates went up, some of these students were trying to finish dentistry, trying to finish med school, and having to make $2,000 a month in interest-only payments. And unless you have family support, that causes
That's
a ton of stress.
Yep.
So just understand out there that there are significantly more people incentivized on you using debt poorly than there is of you using debt safely. And the
Yeah.
only people that are going to benefit from using it properly is you and your household as you build your financial goals. Everyone else is going to benefit from you not doing it properly.
Buying a round of shooters.
Buying around of shooters, yeah. Buying new clothes, going to Aritzia halls, going to Cactus Club, all this stuff. It seems great in the short term, but understand that you're going to be trading off a lot of stuff in the long term. So once you finally graduate, you have the time to do these trips, go for these hikes. You're going to be burdened by all the mistakes you made in the last 5, 6 years. And when it comes to financial planning, a lot of the recommendations, the money that's going to be used to fund these recommendations is not new money. You're not going to just like miraculously come up with another $500 to $5,000 a month. It's money that you're spending elsewhere, but we can cut that out and put it towards something that's working for you instead of against you.
I love, there's a couple of things there I think that are really important. Everybody thinks a financial planner is for somebody who's got $100 or $200 or $500,000 or more.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. Like, if you get going early and get the right education, understanding, like you guys are talking about,
Yeah.
and make it sexy. Like, get excited about the first time you save $5,000,
Yeah.
or right. I mean, it doesn't have to be massive amounts. It can be small amounts, but it's amazing how with time that can add up so much, as
Yeah.
opposed to waiting till you're 55 and then trying to get caught up, and you're never going to make that work. So,
Yeah.
like, that's super important. I think, like, education, gamify it a bit if you have to. That, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, give yourself little targets to try and hit, and be happy about making those, instead of experiences where you forget about them and 2 years later you don't remember anything you spent the money on.
That's right.
As opposed, and imagine, having $50,000 in RSP when you're 23. That's an impressive thing, right? And
Yeah.
that can turn into so much more. So I think that's a big piece of it, trying to make it sexy, trying to make it, something to go after. And then I also think, there's other ways, like you said, there's so many expenses nowadays that I mean, everybody's always had expenses. I don't mean that's something new, but I just feel like there's so many everything's monthly, and they try to make that disappear so that you've got it on your credit card, you don't see it as often as you should.
That's right.
Right? Everything's buried for a reason. And so before you know it, you're laying out $300-400 a month on these expenses that, are they really helping you? Like, probably not that much, or at least you could cut it in half. And if, as you said, I mean, if you can taking a $400 bill down to $200 and take the $200 and invest it, over time, that's going to come back like huge. So,
Yeah.
but people don't connect those things. They don't see the bigger picture of why it's important down the road. And it's hard to think when you're 22 or 23 that when you're 50 or 55 or 60, you're going to want to have some money in the bank and not feel like you have to work for the rest of your life. And so it's such an important topic. I see it so often with people who are trying to buy their first home. And I mean, if you have you can see the people, it's very rare, but the ones that are like, they've saved it all up already, they've got it in place, they're working on that. They don't want to buy the extreme house. They want to buy something reasonable they can live with. And I mean, it's it's so important. I don't know. I mean, you probably see it all the time too, but
Yeah.
it would be nice to sort of help more people get into that thinking than just get in debt and yeah.
Yeah.
People are too aggressive either way nowadays. I think a lot of what we see is people that haven't done enough for a long time because they've been spending money on random things, and then once they finally have whatever that triggering motivation is in their life to be, all right, we need to get started. They're like, all right, so I did some research, and yeah, I can leverage everything, throw everything into the stock market, buy these couple stocks. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, we had one client. He's like, yeah, I got all these line of credits. So my strategy was, take all the line of credits and buy Tesla, because Tesla's always going to go up. I'm like, based off what? Like, like, why would you put all this debt in Tesla? And they don't realize that, oh yeah, I still got to make these interest payments. They just thought, I don't know, I'm going to take money to the stock market. But it's so much information out there, but you don't know what information that's going to help your situation. And I know, like, I fall for the trap as well. Like what you're talking about with the financial planning, people start too late. I did the same thing when it comes to like physio. Like I should have been doing physio a long time ago preemptively, but I didn't. I waited until there was an injury, and now I'm trying to go back and do my rehab. So it's essentially the same thing for financial planning clients. They didn't do it.
It's
you hear you need it, but you don't do it until there's a triggering moment in your life. So that's kind of what we see. But Tyson, you probably had some clients that start really, really late, and then it's kind of tough what options they have, right?
Yeah, it is, and that's a scary thing. Is when somebody comes to you and they're 60 years old and says, "I'm retiring in 5 years. Let's do a retirement plan." And you think, well, we'll do it, but it's not as good as if you started when you're 30 or when you're 25. And much to like what Mike was saying, is it's very unsexy to be putting away 10% or 20% of your income, and in the early years, there's no compound growth.
Yeah.
Like if you have $10,000 in your account and you do really, really well and it doubles, who cares?
Yeah.
It's $20,000.
Yeah.
But if you build up $200,000 and that takes you 15 years and then it doubles, now it's 400,000. Now that's a little sexier.
Yeah.
But that's a 20-year game plan.
Yeah.
For most people, that's not a 2-year thing. So you do have to make it exciting, but you also have to like let people know that this is the boring stuff. It's like, you're supposed to go for a walk after you eat your meal because that's good for your health.
Yeah.
But it's boring.
Yeah.
Right? I'd rather sit on the couch and watch
Yeah.
TV or watch football or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's good for you. And so in being able to incorporate some of the boring disciplines it does a lot for your long-term planning. And so it's like, but then on the other side of it is what you're talking about is how do we make the small incremental things sexy? There are institutions that try to gamify that and make it fun and whatnot, but there's not enough of them.
Yeah.
And then the other side to that is the institutions put pressure on the sales reps to do that with the clients, and so they put undue pressure and make unrealistic maneuvers and say, hey, listen, you gotta buy this, you gotta save this amount of money, and it might not be in the client's budget. And so Vishal and I were talking yesterday, the day before. There was an article in the newspaper, somebody who worked for the bank, and they were gamifying people's accounts and setting up pre-authorized debits and canceling them, and she had to hit her commissions internally. And so that's pressure from the other way, is the institutions put pressure on the frontline people to get your numbers up. Sometimes it's a performance thing, but sometimes it's unrealistic that you expect these frontline people to
Sell
spin
everybody.
gold from straw.
Yeah.
Have 150% close rate.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's multiple angles that you could look at this, and that we need more help in the industry because like Vishal and I aren't going to take on 100,000 clients.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
No.
But
You would think with technology and stuff, there's got to be ways to make this an earlier, and I also think education earlier on. I mean, high school, they don't talk about any of this stuff.
That's right.
And I don't like sounding like an old man cranking about high school, but it's true. I mean, there's so many people that when you teach, they don't know anything about credit. They don't understand that, you have to pay your bills on time or it's going to hurt you down the road.
that's right.
And credit scores are more important than ever. Like people can have, in the older days, we could look at somebody's credit report and say, well, they ran into trouble here, but they've cleaned it up since then and it's okay. Now they just literally, if you don't have the score, you don't get to
That's
even
it.
talk, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so, it's bless you.
Bless you.
It's a black and white world when it comes to the scores and credit, and it's so important to everybody's life. I mean, nobody can get through life probably without borrowing something at some point.
Right.
It also is going to impact you with other things. Like I'm sure at some point, like they're literally, when you want to rent a place, they're pulling your credit. They're even doing skim credit reports when you open accounts or you know, sign up for a service and like things you don't see it, but if you have a crappy score, they're going to turn you down or charge you more. That's really important. So I mean, education is so key to a lot of this stuff, and I don't know how we can reach out to people earlier and try to help them. But it's a really cool thing when you see somebody who can grasp the concept and appreciate that 50 years from now, making the right decisions now can make an amazing life for yourself down the road.
Yep.
But not making the decisions now is going to hurt you all the way through.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's so weird because life moves so fast, and we can do so many things in a day because of productivity hacks and technology and all those kind of things. So to have somebody young think about a 10-year plan, this is like impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we need to do is have the 10-year plan, but we need to kind of break it down to segment into like 1 year at a time. So if your
Yes.
goal is to get to, I don't know, $250,000 of savings in 10 years, what is that going to be at the end of 12 months at a time? And for like you know, Modern Advisor and some of the other platforms that we use, you can actually create little graphs. So when a client logs into their portal, you can gamify it, and you can
That's cool.
see, all right, so here's your goal, here's your goal, here's your goal. So as long as you're hitting those metrics on the year-to-year basis, you'll get to the 10-year goal.
Right.
But it's just a little bit extra work on the advisor side to better understand your client and see, are they capable of thinking long-term without just steering off and be like, oh, like look at all these different stuff I can buy in that same time?
Yeah.
Or do you need to break it down and do 1 year at a time or even 6 months at a time? Like, it's a lot of trial and error, unfortunately. But if you're working with a financial advisor like us, at least you have that desire to help you and find different ways to help you. Versus if you're going to the banks, it's really just sales quota and
Cookie cutter.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not the frontline staff isn't the problem. It's the fact that it's a public company. It's a public entity. So at some point, you're seeing this with like Netflix and Amazon is actually a good example. Amazon Prime, is now they have the ads and everyone's freaking out because they have ads now. But it's like, well, they're not getting enough organic
They
users
got you
anymore.
hooked, and now they can make more profit.
Exactly,
So,
and they need to keep getting the share price higher and higher. So you can only do that so many different ways. You can either get more new users, or you have to get more money from your existing users. And that's kind of the same thing that you're starting to see from the banks.
Yeah.
Is there's only so many people in Canada, and they're going to be banking. So, well, we need to increase, you know, profit margins, and that's where they're starting to get these crazy sales quotas for these employees, and they're opening up shadow accounts. And you know, you could be here talking to me, but someone's actually opening accounts for you at the bank using your pre-authorized debit because they have your information there. So open up accounts, overdraft, close it, open and close it, and you have no idea what's happening. And most people don't check their stuff often to be like, wait, what's all this random stuff having in my account?
Yeah.
So this stuff is happening, whether you know it or not. It's happening, and I know it's happening because you see it in the compliance areas that people are getting audited, and we see it on our side because there's an email. It's basically like a shame list. Someone gets a you know, discipline for something, and everyone hears about it. Oh, damn, that's crazy, but we can't really say specifics. So we know what's happening. The public doesn't know what's happening. The only thing they can do is just think logically about it. Am I better served with a public company that's always trying to increase profits on their end by helping me? Or am I better off being with a private company who has a track record and reviews and understands my pain points and how to help me?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy for me.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
For sure.
And the banks, you guys see this all the time with the brokers too.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's not the frontline staff. I mean, they're just doing their job, but you're not getting the same level of expertise or advice. I mean, and they're not. Quite honestly, they're not working in your best interest. They're working for the bank.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
And at the end of the day, that shows. You know, no bank phones and says, "Hey, you're paying too much in your interest on your mortgage. We should, you know, take a look at it." They're going to
That's
leave
right.
it until the absolute end, so they make the most profit. That's all that they want to do, and that's not a. You just have to understand that, right?
Yeah.
It's what their job is.
Yeah.
Same thing with you guys. I mean, having a custom plan because you know my situation is going to be way more advantageous than just selling me the bank's best mutual fund or whatever, you know, like that they're going to push you into kind of thing, because that's what they're pushing this week. and like it may not serve me whatsoever. It might be the worst thing for me, but that doesn't matter because they sold their mutual fund and that's what they're getting
Yep.
ticked for.
That's right.
So, and to me, the longer I'm, alive, the more you realize how important having a big plan is. Like having a vision of where you really want to be one day.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you have to have it exactly in detail, but you have to have a sketch.
Yeah.
And kind of if I want to get there, let's be realistic. Let's back it up, and what do I have to do? I used to, somebody wants to make X amount of money. Well, if you got to figure out that number first, and then back out how much you have to work to get that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with a plan for saving or for a mortgage or whatever. If you have a bit of a vision of what you want, it's so much easier to go backwards. But if you don't have any vision and you're just working on today, you're never going to plan for that because you just don't even see it. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, is educating people to see that bigger picture.
100%. And I want to ask you a question about that before we go there, just to finish off your point about budgeting. So if you're someone that's early on, I think when it comes to budget, just think of 4 main buckets. And 4 things to think of if you're someone that's emerging your wealth or just struggle with cash flow in general. Is where's your money coming from? Where's your money going? What's left over? And what are you doing with it? Mm-hmm. That's as simple as I can make it. If you just think about that kind of stuff, where's your money coming from? Where's it going? What's left over? And now what are you doing with it?
Yeah.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
And then when you need help for any one of those things, that's when you can reach out. And I think for financial planning, a lot of times is planting seeds for clients. So with real estate, for example, we had clients that bought real estate. But you don't know, we don't know when interest rates are going to drop. We don't know when it's going to be that break-even point where now you could refinance and you'll make more money and consolidate debts or whatever, because there's so many variables. But we can plant the seed in our client's head, like, hey, Tyson, you bought this place. Heads up, when interest rates go down, these are strategies that we could do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a triggering thought. So now when trigger rates do go down, they're like, okay, cool, this strategy could work for me. I know there's at least an option out there.
Yeah.
So there's going to be clients that perhaps right now or in the near future are going to be approaching this as rates drop. So let's say there's people out there listening that have a sketch or an idea that I want to buy a secondary property.
Right.
What does that look like from like a refinancing standpoint? So I have a primary residence, let's say it's a condo, it's gone up in value and I have some equity in it. How can I use that to start buying more real estate?
Yeah, I mean, we can refinance it depending on the numbers. Obviously, everybody's different, but a lot of the times what we'll do is we'll try and take out enough for the down payment on the next place, and then that next place you can finance 100% of it because you've got the down payment already, and you get the mortgage on the new place, and hopefully the numbers all work. I mean, those are situations we have to. Somebody's dog's walking through the parking lot, and so it all depends on what specifically where you want to get to, but we definitely, I mean, the cost and expense of refinancing that, if you are using it to buy a rental property, makes it a business. So therefore the costs are all right off. So that's something you can talk to the accountant about. But yeah, I mean, it's in general, that's the beauty of real estate is you're paying the mortgage down, hopefully, and hopefully it's going up a little bit and your equity is slowly building. And as you get that certain amount, there's sort of a trigger point where you can take some out and do something with it, and that might be investing, but it might be buying a rental property. It could be a number of different things, and that's why I get excited about real estate, because it gives people that opportunity that they might not realize they even have. And it shocks me once again to education, and it doesn't really shock me, but like a lot of people just don't realize that they have these opportunities sitting in their house, and the old generation, the whole thing was pay your mortgage off as fast as possible. Well, that isn't always the best move now.
And honestly, it's not really doable sometimes.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reality is zero. People these days probably are ever going to pay it completely off. I don't want to say that's terrible, but if you're using your asset well, you actually want to take that equity out, use it to do other things that are going to increase your big picture down the road. So buying that rental or like I said, investments or whatever. But so that thing can become a useful little pump that's going to build wealth for you down the road. And I have clients that have bought 5, 6, 7 properties, and it takes time and a lot of effort. But and the goal is to kind of keep them all maxed out, because the write-off is the best thing for them while they're working. But then when they retire, just like an RSP, then you maybe sell one and pay off some of the mortgages or all of them, and now you're just collecting checks and your income's down, but you're in a better place. So you've got an established income, and if you're not making enough, you can always sell another one, and it just gives you kind of more options and more things to think about. And but it's particularly obviously in BC and the Lower Mainland, real estate's gone nothing but up. I mean, it doesn't go straight up, but it kind of goes like this, and it's tough to get into. And I don't want to. I mean, I know the media just loves talking about how impossible it is to buy a house. It's not impossible. I mean, you can do it if you want to. It's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of hustle if that's where you want to go. But it is possible. You have to have a plan. You can't just like show up and buy a house. Like
that's right.
Right. You've got to think, if I want to do this, I'm not going to go out every night. I'm going to save this and and start working on a plan. And that's what we're always are talking about is plan.
Yeah.
It's not super sexy, but it gets you where you want to go. So
that's
it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And I think for a lot of the clients that their income goes up, like let's say for example, I bought a place and in 2022.
Yeah.
I'm self-employed, so from 2022 until 2024, my income has gone up X amount of dollars. If you can still support the cash flow of refinancing and pulling money out, pulling debt from your house is one of the only tax-free ways to have money. It's very rare in Canada that you can have tax-free money. So if you have money in your TFSA, that's great. If you have money in your primary residence, that's awesome as well. Or if you're just pulling debt from your home or your real estate, that's not going to be earned income. It's not taxable, and you can do other stuff with it. But so let's say it was in 2022, it was about 23% of my cash flow to pay my mortgage payment, but now it's down to 15 because my income has gone up. If I can bring that up to the same percentage as it was before, it's not really hurting me the same. It's still the same percentage of my home, but now it's tax free and I can pull lump sum. So if I wanted to go into an investment and invest into like a REIT fund or a MIC fund or something, I can either do it from a monthly standpoint of, hey, I'm going to put $300 a month in, or I could throw $70,000 in. And so you can make bigger swings with your money that's tax free. And if you take that tax free from debt from real estate, pop it into your TFSA, and then pop that into a real estate, now you're really making a huge difference. And then I'll pass off to you that whenever we want to talk about RSPs, RSP season's coming as well. So there's like catch-up rooms and stuff you can do. So there's a bunch of different stuff. But before we switch gears, I forgot what the thing was called. That thing you were beta testing. Do you want to talk about that with the?
Oh, that we call it the Home Digest.
Yes.
Yeah, we're setting up something where our clients will get a monthly update on roughly what their mortgage balance is now, roughly what their house is worth now, their equity position, and what they qualify for based on the numbers we have. Obviously, if your income is going up, that's going to change it, so we would have to talk. But it gives people sort of an idea, just like their mutual fund statement. It's going to give them a statement on their house every month, and it's a good thing because it shows them that they're tracking towards, either paying the mortgage off faster or building up enough equity they could do something with that, either keep their place and buy another. One thing you mentioned about planning, I mean, sometimes it's even as simple as when you're thinking about buying your place, think about long term, like are you going to keep it and maybe rent it out? Well, if you buy in a condo building, you're not allowed to rent ever. That's not a smart move. So like you need to have some thinking of ahead of time, not just, oh, I like living here, this is all that matters. Is this a place going to be rentable, or is it going to make good rent down the road if that's what you're going to do? So back to your point, the digest, I think it'll be really interesting for people to track that on a monthly basis and kind of get a feel for. So often we just buy your house and it's kind of just disappears. You don't think about it until 5 years later, and you got to renew, and that's about all you do is think about it then.
That's right.
But this is to give people more of a live feel for what's going on.
Yeah. I love that, because without that, the only ways you would really, I think, know what your property is doing is when you get your annual assessment from BC Assessment. Like, oh, okay, my place went up. Or if you have a realtor come door knock, like, hey, do you know how much your place is worth? I just sold one down the street. And that's the only time that people really ever know how much their place is worth, right? So I think this is awesome way that they can always know what their biggest asset and what the biggest liability is doing for them on a monthly basis. So I saw the example of it when you sent it to us. I think I called Tyson right away. I'm like, this is sick. And it's something that we're going to definitely offer to our clients as well. How, I don't know. We're going to figure out.
We'll figure that
But
out.
I think Mike and I were talking offline about this is exactly like what you just said, is people sign up for their mortgage and then they never see a balance. They never see information. They don't know growth. They don't know opportunity. And that's your biggest financial commitment for most people. That's going to be a lifetime, and you're in the dark. And it's like, wait a minute, like, am I missing opportunity? Is there other things that I can do? And if they don't have that information, and somebody loses a job or something, they're not armed with that information, so they can say, hey, listen, these are our actual options. And a lot of the times they turn and say, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to liquidate my investments, my retirement. It's like, wait a minute. That's probably not the first place that we should go. But And so I think having a tool like that, like a status check, is so important, because how often do you get to check the temperature of like what your home's doing?
Totally, and even right now with us going into a lower rate cycle, it'll calculate that you should look at refinancing because you're paying this much extra in rent or interest compared to right now. So, if there's current products that could save you money, now you can take your say $2,000 a month payment and maybe keep it or reduce it to $1,700, but then keep your $300 extra that you were paying to interest. Now you can put that into an investment or something else. And so there's a lot of information is always a good thing to have, right? And I think that's what it does, is it just gives people more opportunity because they've got this information in front of them on a regular basis.
I think it'd be best if Jamie, can you throw on the TV real quick? No, I'm just joking. Joe Rogan plug. But no, I think it's awesome. On that note, RSP season's kind of coming up. Like, I think people should start thinking about it, because there's corporate year ends that are happening. RSP catch up room. What is that? And why would someone need to do RSP catch up?
Yeah, so the RSP catch up strategy is something that we use for those people who are in their 50s and maybe they haven't saved as diligently. They've put resources in other places like paying down the mortgage or school for kids or stuff like that. But also, they're probably entering their prime earning years.
Yeah.
So in a sense, they've stocked up on RSP room over the years. And your notice of assessment that you get after you file your taxes tells you how much RSP room you can have. You can actually take out a loan, max out your RSPs, and then get a huge refund in April when you do your taxes, and pay down a chunk or all of the loan depending on your situation. And so we would help clients work out that kind of like number of like, how do we do that catch up? Because you don't want to be just if you're a normal person, you don't want to just be throwing all that money in at age 58 and taking it out at age 65. There's no growth on it.
Yeah.
Hasn't had time. You don't get the benefits of compound interest. You don't even get a full cycle. So the earlier you could start that, the better. But then we also work with individuals that, they save money in their corporation. So then it's trying to figure out the balance and working with the accountant. How much are we showing as T4 income so we can max out RSPs?
Right.
Are we taking dividends? Are we just going to save inside the holding corporation and then build a strategy to get that money out later? There's a bunch of different factors that can come into play. But for our normal T4 employed individuals, you want to take advantage of the programs that we have. RSPs is a tax deferral mechanism. We don't get too many of those.
No.
If you don't own a home, the FHSA is a tax deferral mechanism.
Yeah.
Where you put money in, you're going to get a refund. And most people don't know. It was like when tax-free savings rolled out. It was 2013, 2014. People still didn't know what it was, and we had it for 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what a first home savers account, the FHSA is, contact your advisor, contact Portfolio Planning. We'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
But there's lots of opportunity, and I think that there's so much rapid noise and TikTokification of information that people don't take the time to sit down and understand how it applies to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just quickly on that, I mean, the difference between somebody who's self-employed compared to somebody who's employed, the tax brackets could be similar, similar income, but self-employed can decide a bit more on where they show the income.
Yeah.
If you're getting paid by a company, like, you're getting hit right in the nose.
That's right.
And these things make so much, like, it impacts those people even more, I think, than a self-employed person, even though there are obviously ways to manage this. But to me, like, somebody's in a high tax bracket that's making great money, but paying it all out every year, that's just so crazy. And there's so many of these opportunities that we can take advantage of. So, I mean, it's, once again, education is just so important.
Absolutely. And then Vishal and I are big proponents of being integrated into the financial team. So your accountant, your lawyer, your bookkeeper, is we want to be integrated into the team so that everybody's on the same plan. You want to make sure that they don't have a different plan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they say, like, hey, we built this financial plan and we're going to build your retirement. This is what we do. And then the accountant says, I don't believe in RSPs. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's not a religion.
Yeah.
But what's your plan then?
Yeah, you need to get everybody aligned.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's pointless, right?
Yeah. And we try to take the approach, like, maybe we're wrong. So, like, we've had them sometimes where everything makes sense numbers-wise, and then it should be an easy, all right, just go implement this and you're good. And we'll send planning memos to all the other professionals, and someone will come back like, oh, I don't believe in RSPs or something, and you're like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. But for us, we're like, okay, well, maybe we're missing something. Maybe we're wrong. So if it's not RSPs, then what?
Yeah.
And more times than not, they don't have any answer. They're like, well, I don't know, but yeah, just not RSPs. Like, okay, well,
Because-
we're doing
because
RSPs
they haven't
now.
done any RSPs.
Yeah, it's okay, we're doing RSPs then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I guess we'll wrap up by saying what's upcoming. What's upcoming for the Home Happy team? What's coming down the pipeline at the end of the year?
Just working on more of those, trying to bring value to our clients, working on more information output, try to help people understand things better and let them make the right decisions. And I mean, I'm sure you guys are in a similar kind of boat. I mean, now that rates are coming down, the market hasn't picked up as much as everybody keeps expecting it to in terms of sales, but there's still lots of opportunity for clients to take advantage of lower rates, and that's really our number one focus right now.
Yeah, and whether you're buying something new or you already have real estate.
Absolutely.
I think that's things that people don't realize is when a lot of brokers and people out there in the economy talk about, there's things that you can do in a low rate cycle to take advantage. People just assume, okay, well, it's just people trying to buy homes, take advantage of being able to buy more home. But if you own a home already, there's a lot of things you can do in a low rate cycle that can benefit you. And if you have any questions, reach out to Mike and the Home Happy team, and they'll kind of run you through options.
For sure.
Yeah. We got a bunch of stuff going on at the end of the year.
We have so much going on.
Not enough time. That's what we don't have.
I didn't even know what day today was, and I almost didn't show up because I was on the wrong day. I was get up, get dressed, and go.
Yeah.
We have events where we are talking to dental students coming up soon. We have events where we are talking to optometrists soon. We have a couple of charitable events that are coming. I just got some emails on that, and so we'll be attending some of those things. And there's probably about 5 other things that are major that I'm not even capturing, but it's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a ton of just events. Like when we look at our calendar, it's crazy at the end of the year. The good thing is we've done a lot of work with associations at the start of 2024 until now. A lot of those things are kind of starting to pay off now where, how can we help people on a larger scale? Social is definitely part of that.
Yep.
But talking and booking meetings one-on-one, as much as their team has grown over the last bit, it's not feasible to be like, all right, I'm going to meet with everyone on one-on-one. But instead, what we've done is we've gotten and been selected, thankfully, with a lot of these associations to be a partner with them of talk to our members about all the stuff they need to know.
Help the community.
Exactly, help the community. And as there's new practitioners that come up, they're going to learn from their colleagues, and the colleagues will be like, hey, heads up, don't do this, focus on where's your money coming from, where's it going, what's left over, what are you doing with it? That kind of stuff and verbiage is what we want to be in those circles so that they can teach the next generation of practitioners, keep more of your money because the government's going to get their money regardless, but you don't need to leave a tip, right? So,
so true.
Just make sure you pay yourself a little bit more. But that's it for me. I think we're good for time.
That's great.
Any last minute thoughts, anyone?
No.
Mike, thanks for coming down, man.
Thank you.
It's great to see you in person. So, signing off episode 10 of Portfolio Planning. Talk to you guys next week.
Love it.